What's up, Grey Wolf Survival? So I said a couple weeks ago that I was going to be putting out a video on the process of making these. You might recognize them as my fire starting wafers. They are cotton rounds, right? Makeup removal cotton rounds that have been soaked in candle wax. The brown ones here, these different color ones, and the red one, they were soaked in warmer wax. Like the wax melts, it has the little electric lamp that warms the wax for scent. They were dipped in that first, and then a second layer, which is the white coating. You can kind of see the white coating on it. That was just plain candle wax. So today I'm going to take you through the process of making these. It's cheap, it's simple, and I'll just take you from beginning to end on that, get some of these made for us. Stick around. So what we're going to need to get this done is a couple of things. You'll need some kind of a burner. Could be a grill stove. Could be your kitchen stove. You're going to need a pan, a pot. I strongly suggest you don't use your wife's good cookware. I went out to a garage sale and thrift store, and I picked up this cast iron pot. I think I spent $2 or $3 on it, and that's what I use for melting my wax. And so when I'm done, you can see inside there's the hardened wax. When I'm done making my fire starters, I turn off the heat, I let it cool, I let the wax harden in here. And this is where it stays. It's its storage and its heating vessel. So I strongly suggest thrift store, flea market, garage sales, whatever. As it's winter now, probably more like a thrift store. But don't use your wife's good cookware. Bad choice. We'll come back to that. You're also going to need candles for wax. I've got some in glass jars. If you decide to go the glass jar route, you're also going to need a pan. Again, I don't suggest that you use your wife's good cookware, but you'll need another pan that you can put water in and put it on a low simmer, low, medium heat to bring this candle wax up to temperature, melt it down. As it melts, you can push it down, get it in there, get it melted, and then drain it out into the other. So I have both. This is why I say don't use your wife's good stuff. You see that white ring around the inside? That's where one of these jars shattered on me because the jar was cold and I put it into water that was too hot and I couldn't handle it, and it shattered, and I have this wax ring around the inside of this Teflon coated pan. Wife would not be very happy with you if you did that. So you can do glass jar candles. Again, everything that I'm going to use today, other than the burner and the pan, the wax and the cotton pads, I pick it up at my local Dollar Tree, dollar store. These are the most common. Occasionally they have something like this. I prefer these. These are what you saw at the beginning of the video. I prefer these. They're a little bit thinner, a little bit smaller. They don't take as much space. These have some detailing in it to give it some cotton fluffing, some rise in it. I don't really care for that, the way that it absorbs. It uses a lot more wax than I need. I can tell you that with these, I have had zero issue with these starting a fire. They're waterproof. Once they're done, they're waterproof until you break them open. And even after you break them open, if they get wet, all you have to do is break it again and get a little bit of roughing on the seam of the wax, on the fibers, and it will take a spark even wet. Pretty incredible tool, really cheap. So the green pack of round ones that I showed you, $1 a sleeve. I now use this style of candle, just the plain white. I usually try to get unscented. They didn't have any unscented the other day when I was there, so I got the fresh linen. Doesn't have a very strong scent. I try to keep it unscented because I don't want to attract anything when I'm in the woods. But if I can't find the unscented, I'll use the linen, $1 a piece. So I've got 5 candles. I've got some parchment paper. Now this is from Sam's Club, but you can get parchment paper at the dollar store. You can get a roll of it for $1. Works just fine. I have a lightweight aluminum pan cookie sheet that I got at the dollar store. And then I take my parchment paper. I don't like to use wax paper. I prefer parchment paper. And when I'm done dipping my rounds into the wax, I move them onto the parchment paper for them to cool. Sometimes the wax paper will melt and it'll stick and it'll tear, and I just don't like that. But my choice is the parchment paper. So again, everything other than the base tools is from the dollar store, so you can get it cheap and easy. It's readily available. And each one of my wafers, when I make them, each one of them will burn. Half will burn for about 5 minutes. So when I go into the woods and I'm starting a fire, I go out to my fire pit and I'm starting a fire, I will break it in half and then I'll break it into a quarter. And if it's not wet, a quarter will get 2.5 minutes and I can get a fire going. If it's kind of damp or it's windy, I'll use a half, and that's about 5 minutes. A full one of these will burn for about 10 minutes. I will tell you up front, I double coat mine, so I dunk that, I get it absorb the wax, I let it cool. Once it's cooled and hardened, I bring it back and I do a quick dunk using tongs, right? Put it in, let it go, grab it, take it out, and put it back out to cool. Just as quick and easy as can be, very effective. My tools, I use, again from the dollar store, a pair of simple tongs. Right? And I don't even need to open them all the way. This is more than enough to do what I need to do. And then a cooking fork, meat fork. Again, $1 a piece. This allows me to turn the wax pad, to dunk it under, make sure I got a good coating on it. Again, I don't really use these unless I'm actually doing the second coat. I'll use this so I can pick it up and kind of let it drain off. Anyway, let's get started. I'm going to take my wax that's already been pre-melted, so I'm not going to melt this down. But if I were going to, I would put in, take all the wrapping off, put 1 or 2 of them in there, turn it on to low heat, let it begin to melt the wax down. Once the wax is melted, I'll grab hold of the wick, I'll pull it out. I keep a little tray of these, a little jar of these, so I can use them for other things later. But pull those out. So those melt down, unwrap and add a couple more until I get all the wax that I can fit into my pot. I don't ever really fill it above. I leave about an inch, ½ inch to an inch at the top of the pot so that I'm not making a mess. If I bump the table or whatever, it's not pouring out everywhere. So for our demonstration today, I've already got wax in here, so I'm going to leave these off to the side. And I'm going to turn on the stove. We're going to let that come up to heat, turn that down to low. Move the lid off to the side, we don't need the lid right now. Move this over so you can see. I'm going to bring this up here. So this is a dirty sheet. It's got some wax on it. You just dump that wax back in here. Let it melt back down. Turn that over, and that will become our cooling sheet. And do just a couple of these at a time. Doesn't take a whole lot of time. You can already see the wax is now turning in here. It's come loose from the heat, starting to get melted down at the bottom. You don't want the heat too high. You'll scorch the wax, give it a burnt smell, not real great. So I just keep it on low. All we want to do is liquefy it. So go ahead and do that. And then once this has melted down, I will come back and we'll reconnect and we'll start making the actual fire wafers.